So in the UK, maritime has got a bit of a reputation for being run by old men in grey suits. And actually, it's not. It's a huge array of people and females, and we just don't promote that, I don't think.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to the 136th episode of the Shipping Podcast. I hope you're well and keeping safe in this pandemic, wherever you are and whatever you do. We are all in this together, and there are so many people who are working hard to get us through this. And if I can offer some time of distraction from the hard work by delivering podcast episodes to you, I'm more than happy to do so. For this episode, I aimed high. I wanted you to meet a power woman who I have met a few times and who has impressed me very much. That is Katy Ware, Director of Maritime and Safety Standards at the Maritime Coastguard Agency, and a permanent representative of the UK to the IMO. Katy is responsible for ensuring the safety and quality of seafarers and ships under the flag flown by British merchant and or passenger ships. Since 2011, Katy has been appointed the permanent representative of the UK to the International Maritime Organization. Her role there is to facilitate, coordinate, and negotiate all maritime matters between other governmental departments, the European Union, and the International Maritime Organization. So now I hope you understand why I wanted you to hear from Katy what she thinks about her job and what she does. I hope you will enjoy our conversation, which was done online, so you have to excuse the sound quality not being as good as if I would have had the opportunity to sit down with my microphones in the same room as Katy. But I think you can hear Katy loud and clear, and that is the main point. I give you Katy Ware. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, morning, Lena. My name's Katy Ware. I'm the Director of Maritime Safety and Standards with the UK's Maritime and Coastguard Agency, and I'm also the UK's permanent representative to the IMO.
And what is your background?
I studied marine technology at Newcastle University. I trained as a surveyor with Lloyd's Register, and then I joined the MCA just over 20 years ago, where I started life as a baby surveyor. We specialised in the office that I was in Southampton. Our specialisation was cruise ships, so I spent an awful lot of time in Germany taking cruise ships, standing by cruise ships at refit.
So why did you choose a career in the shipping industry?
I've got no idea. Well, no. I have got absolutely no connection to this maritime whatsoever. My father was a construction worker. My mother worked in a cafe. I knew I wanted to do engineering. And originally, I was going to join the Royal Navy. So I was going to go to the Officers' College in Dartmouth and then train to become a marine engineer. I got cold feet as I was I was supposed to go to Dartmouth to the Naval College for a year and then go to Newcastle. At the time, it was when the first sort of tranche of females were going on to the naval ships in the UK. So I would have been the second or third tranche of females to go into the Naval Academy. And there was terrible coverage about it in the press over here, and I got cold feet. So about 4 weeks before I was due to go, I rang up Newcastle and said, "Can I come to you a year early, please?" And They said, yeah, of course. And I was dreading telling my father because my parents had travelled all over the country, taking me to events, to interviews. So they'd massively supported me to do this career in the Royal Navy. I was dreading telling my father. So I told my mum, and she said, well, you better tell your father when he gets home from work tonight. So I said, Dad, I've got to tell you something. And he was like, what? I said, I'm not joining the Navy. Well, he was elated. He was like, thank the Lord. I never wanted any daughter of mine to go into the military, but I had to support you. So I didn't join the Navy. I went straight to university instead. But that's originally how it happened. I was brought up by the sea. I was brought up in a small town on the northeast coast, a place called Whitby, and I just fell in love with the sea.
That is a very common answer to my question to that, because I think that maybe we are not as good as we could be to promote a career within the maritime industry.
No, we're not. I think it's getting better. I think if there's one thing to come out of this crisis that we're currently in at the moment is we are promoting seafarers and shipping, particularly in the UK. I think there's a lot of people that don't actually realise how their goods arrive here. Even here in Southampton, the kids see the container ships and the cruise ships coming in and out every day, and still they don't really understand that it's tragic that we have to have a crisis to be able to promote the seafarers. But no, I don't think we do a very good job of promoting ourselves. It's a great industry, and it's not just about going to sea. I've never been to sea. I've never served on the ships. I've been to sea when I was a surveyor, but I've never served on the ships. There's such a multifaceted dimensions to all the different careers in the maritime, from the technical to the financing to the lawyers. So there is just a huge array of jobs in the maritime sector. And no, we don't do a very good job of promoting it. And also, I think it seems to be a bit stuffy.
Oh, please develop what your thought on that one.
So in the UK, maritime has got a bit of a reputation for being run by old men in grey suits. And actually, it's not. It's a huge array of people and females, and we just don't promote that, I don't think.
I totally agree. I had the pleasure of meeting you at the London International Shipping Week in a setting where there were a lot of power women involved. And I felt humbled just walking into the room, but I think that is something we should showcase in a way. Because it's not only in the UK that it's the perception is that it's only elderly men who's running this, which is not true at all.
No, not at all. I've got multiple amazing women in amazing careers, both at the IMO, within my job running the directorate in the flag state, There's Corinne, who's involved heavily with the ICS. There's Matey that you've interviewed. There's Fran. There's lots of amazing women out there.
Yeah. So what does Maritime and Coastguard Agency, what do you do?
What do I do? So the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, we are the flag, coastal and port state for the UK. So HM Coastguard, they run the coastal state, and my directorate, we are the flag state and port state for the UK. We are quite unusual at the MCA in that we're one of the very few government agencies, because we're an executive agency of the Department for Transport, who actually has policy making devolved to them, which is why I have the role as the IMO Perm Rep. So in my team, I've got multiple offices around the coast where my marine surveyors operate, and they do a vast array of work. So port state control, flag state inspections, and that's not just international flying vessels. We've got a huge domestic fishing vessel fleet. They do ISM audits. They do the oral exams for STCW. So they're all around the coast. There's just short of 130 surveyors. And they are supported by really amazing business support teams. And then in headquarters, we've got multiple departments. So we've got the international team, we've got a legal team, which is they're the experts, and we've got economists and analysts in there. We've got a navigational safety team. So obviously they're responsible for navigation safety in the UK, and particularly what we call a civil hydrography programme, surveying the seabed to put the data through to the UK Hydrographic Office. I've got a safety team who are dealing with LSA, MARPOL, the real stereotypical technical bits. We've got seafarers training and certification. We've got seafarers health. And then in Cardiff, I've got my register of shipping and seafarers. So it's a big old team and a big old mandate.
Yeah, you are the leader of all these people.
Yes.
How do you find that?
It can be quite challenging. I'm very blessed. I've got an amazing senior leadership team. So when I took over as director 4 years ago, we started what we call a survey and inspection transformation program. So that was modernising our survey and inspection. We'd got ourselves into a bit of a mess. We were running at 30% vacancy rate. We had an incredibly high retirement age with our surveyors. So what we did is we went to Treasury and we put a business case through to pay the surveyors commercial rates so that I could attract a better quality of people to come ashore. So we actually just closed the programme this week. That was 4 years, that programme. But as part of that programme, I've built up my senior leadership team around me. And these are a really amazing group of people that help me run everything, keep it under control. And then my job really is to manage upwards. And, obviously I represent my directorate on the MCA's executive board and the board itself. So it can be tough. It can be very demanding. You'd think it would be easy. I like to get out to my offices and see everybody. You'd think it would be actually really easy just to get around the country, but actually it's quite hard work and demanding. But once I get there, I love being with the guys. We just have to get on with it. It's challenging at times, but I'm there to lead and guide them. I can be a bit of a control freak. So one of the things I've really had to learn in the last year is just to try more to empower my people to get on with it. And the current crisis, it actually is allowing me to empower my people, because I'm having to deal with ministerial pieces, quite high level pieces. So I am having to say, guys, I need you to just get on with this for me, and I trust you to do it. And if you've got a problem, just call me. But for me personally, that's been quite a challenge. But I spent the last year, I've had an executive coach, which I strongly recommend to people in my sort of position. She helps me hugely with things that I need to reflect on, issues that I've faced, difficult conversations. So she's been really helping me to just take myself, because when I took over 4 years ago, I didn't have this huge cadre of assistant directors to help me. So I was having to do everything myself. So now I've got these people, I need to pull myself out and go to the strategic and sit in the strategic place.
That sounds interesting and exciting and a little bit scary, I think. But you say that you're the permanent representative at the IMO for the United Kingdom. So what do you do at IMO then?
So basically, I head up the UK delegation at the main committee. So I've got a team of 8 in Southampton that are the international team. And we've got 2 roles at the IMO. So we're obviously the host government. So quite a lot of that team are sort of unsung heroes. They help run the building, do the maintenance, a lot of diplomatic work, helping, supporting the actual secretariat, particularly around visa issues and getting the delegates in and supporting ESG on host government issues. So that's quite a big job. But then also, obviously, the other part of the team is to support and facilitate and help the policy officials that come with me to IMO to get ready for the meeting. So we've got quite a stringent process. The papers come in, we process them, they get sent to the relevant officials, they help them to draft the briefings and put together a whole briefing pack for me. We then have internal meetings with the policy officials. We talk through the lines that we're going to take, the discussions. And then obviously When I go to the IMO, I'm heading up the delegation at the council, the governance body of the IMO, the safety committee, the environment committee. And obviously what feeds into those committees are all the subcommittees, which others in the international team head up for me. So you usually see sat alongside me when I'm at IMO, there's myself, and then it will be whoever's been heading up the relevant subcommittees when we talk about it, and the relevant policy officials. So it's a bit like musical chairs at the UK desk, because I've got to move them around depending on what the subject is. And we do have fun and games because they sit upstairs in the delegates lounge or on the fourth floor. So it's like, text them, quick, get down here, your agenda item's up. So we have a lot of fun. I love the IMO. It's incredibly hard work. But again, there's some incredible people that have been involved there for a long time. Métis, Turid Stemra from Norway, Jeff Lance from the US, there's, Captain Bruce and Marian Adams at the Marshall Islands, there's a lot of people that have been around for a long time, and we just help each other through. And, obviously we have a lot of discussions with other countries and like-minded countries, and obviously a lot of the non-governmental organizations beforehand. So there's an awful lot of work gets done. I always say the work actually gets done in the margins, not in the plenary.
Yeah, that's one way of doing things.
Yeah, but it's a change in time for us as well, as we exit the EU. So predominantly, the EU coordinates the member states on issues where they have competence, where there is EU legislation. If there's a piece of EU legislation that is being covered by a subject at the IMO, the EU used to have what we call the coordinated position. We're obviously no longer part of that. And at the moment, it's quite difficult because we're still bound by the acquis, but we're not part of the coordination. But the UK will move to a very different place as we come out of the transition. And I think we'll have a lot more freedom to engage. So it's interesting times for us. It's a change in dynamic, The UK was the EU member state that non-EU countries, Japan or Singapore or the US, would reach out to if they wanted to do business with the EU. Likewise, often it was the UK that would be tasked to reach out to the non-EU members if the EU wanted to go the other way. So we had quite a strategic position. So that position is going to change as we come out.
Yeah. That is an interesting perspective that I hadn't thought about, of course. Being in Sweden, far away from where you are, in a way. So what are the biggest changes that you have seen in the maritime industry during your career?
I think the biggest changes I've seen is the influence of the Paris MOU and the port state control in terms of the standards of shipping. Now, I'm not saying that it's perfect everywhere. I think sometimes they just go somewhere else and they know not to come to the UK or to the EU. But I do think the biggest change has been the effect of port state control and what we've done to improve shipping. We used to get some real horror ships here in Southampton, and the standards have changed a lot. I also think that the Maritime Labour Convention has changed things hugely. We now have teeth. When I was a port state control officer, we didn't really have the teeth for those welfare pieces when the crews weren't being paid, when the conditions on board were poor. But at least now with MLC, we've got those teeth to support the seafarers when we do have those tragic cases, and in the worst case, abandonment.
So how do you see the future for the maritime industry, for shipping, going forward?
We were just about to go into very exciting times with the negotiations on the decarbonisation piece at the IMO, when obviously everything had to stop. We were getting very excited in the MCA about engaging with future fuel projects, working with industry partners like LR and DND, GL. And obviously with the crisis, I'm sorry to keep talking about the crisis, the world has changed again. So, I do hope that we don't lose this decarbonisation piece. But right now, I think ship operators are not in a very they're making just daily operational decisions to keep freight going. Obviously, economically, it's incredibly difficult for them. So they're in a really operational focus. We don't know what will happen with the shipyards, with the development. So I still hope that the decarbonisation agenda will carry on. But just right now, we're just going to have to wait and see how shipping comes out of the other side of this. There's been a lot of discussions in the press. You see loads of this, and there's some quite opposing views. There's some people that say the decarbonisation piece is derailed, and that as governments bring their countries out of economic crisis, that the decarbonisation piece will slide, and our commitment to the UNFCCC will slide. There are others that are saying, actually, this could be the time for us to change. So we're really excited about that at the MCA, and it's very high on our agenda. But we just need to see what happens over the next few weeks and months. We have to be very mindful that there's a lot of people. I mean, we are working on a daily basis here with the cruise industry. They went just overnight to zero revenue. They are having to use their ships to repatriate crew because they can't fly them in, and it's really difficult for these people. Even people like Fran, who you've interviewed, that she is having to run a lifeline service to the Isle of Wight to get medicine and people back and forward to the hospital. But they're doing it, and their cash flow and their liquidity is minimal. I've had discussions with the minister and the cruise industry. How are we going to bring the cruise industry out of this? How do you put confidence back in the consumer that it's going to be safe to operate? We're doing a piece of work with the International Association of Class Societies of what the survey regime will look like as we come out of the other side, because we will have ships out of survey and out of their survey windows for a very long time to come. So it's actually the coming out of this will be an exciting time for us, because we're going to have to really think out of the box as regulators, because we will probably move to a risk assessment basis for doing surveys and keeping the ships operated and safe for quite some time afterwards as we get on top, because there will be a massive demand on ship repair yards to get the ships in, to get their surveys done, to get equipment fitted. So it's going to be a huge challenge helping the shipping industry as we come out of the other side of this.
Yeah, it's going to take some leadership on everyone's part. And maybe it was the wrong question to put to you right now. I was more thinking about, I usually ask this to my guests, what do you think about the future? And before the crisis, we could see, there were so many other things changing at the same time. It was the digitalization, it was the Industry Revolution 4.0, and it was, I think, a generational move, because the younger people were taking over from the eldest ones in the industry, and we could see more females in the industry. So there were so many other things that changed, and now it's all changed again, upside down.
But equally, there's an opportunity. So at the MCA, and I know other industry colleagues are doing it, there was ideas and thought leadership that we were all talking about that actually now is the time to bring it forward. So, for example, remote surveys. The class societies were just starting to move into this field of remote surveys. Well, we're having to accelerate that now, because we're probably going to have to do it sooner than we thought. So there are opportunities, for example, for us in the MCA. We were looking at digitalization of our seafarers assessments for STCW. We're having to bring that forward because, we do in the thousands of oral exams at the MCA for the seafarers, and we need to keep those seafarers operating, and they need to bring those oral assessments for STCW back online as quickly as possible. So just this week, we have been testing online systems for assessing seafarers so that we can get those guys back online as quickly as possible. So there is a lot of things that we were all talking about that actually the window's opened and we just have to get on with it. And sometimes those constraints that we work with within government, the wheels of Whitehall that can be quite slow, we have to push the boundaries a bit right now.
Yeah. So coming back to that first, what we talked about first, about visibility, maybe that also will have an impact on how we become more visible, the maritime industry. Because, I mean, I'm thinking about digitalization. That might also contribute to us becoming more visible. And maybe if we, or if you in the maritime industry stands up in the middle of this like a phoenix bird or something to try and sort things out as quick as possible, maybe that will also help to make us more visible.
Absolutely. I also think, we hopefully when we stand up and support everybody as we come out of this, yes, hopefully we will become more visible. But I also think that some of these projects that we've talked about, the decarbonisation piece, the digitalisation, the remote surveys, it's a bit more exciting and a bit more glossy. And then maybe people will go, oh, that's interesting. So, we've got to be positive. We will rise out of the flames of all of this. We have to. We need shipping. We can't do anything other than rise up out of this. The world needs shipping, and therefore they have to come out of this crisis, and we have to do everything they can to support them.
I totally agree with you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me. Who would you be interested in listening to? Who do you think I should try and interview the next?
There's a really interesting shipyard on the Isle of Wight here, the Wight Shipyard, and it's run by a gentleman called Peter Morton, and he works very closely with somebody called Sean Collins, who owns Thames Clippers. You'll have probably seen the high-speed craft going up and down the Thames. And those two have got a really interesting story. That shipyard, it's building high-speed craft, aluminium high-speed craft. And I won't tell the full story, but basically that shipyard was born out of Sean Collins giving the gentleman, Peter Morton, a challenge. And it's a really interesting challenge. And this yard, it's amazing to have it here, to have ships being built on the south coast. But you should interview Sean and Peter together and let them tell you their story. It's really amazing.
Okay. I will try and get hold of them and see what I can do. So thank you very much again for spending this time with me, taking the time to speak to me. And best of luck in your future adventures.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katy, for your time. I enjoyed our conversation, and I'm very grateful that the listeners of the Shipping Podcast got to hear from you and hear about your passion for the maritime industry. I hope to see you in real life again in a not too distant future. I received so many emails with feedback on previous episodes and also with suggestions of guests for the future. Thank you so very much for this. I read them all and I try to find the time to reply. If you have not received any reply from me yet, you will. But right now there seems to be a demand for people who do online communication, so I am more busy than usual. I promise you, you will get a reply. So, until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a Shipping Podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.